Let's get right into it. Number 10. The Singing Caves of Oman. Imagine walking into a pitch-black cave in the middle of the Omani desert. It's silent for a moment until the cave starts to hum. Not like wind whistling through cracks, we're talking deep, echoing voices, rising and falling like monks chanting underwater. Locals call them the Singing Caves, and geologists have been scratching their heads for decades. The sound isn't random, it shifts depending on the number of people inside. One tourist described it as the earth breathing. Scientists, being scientists, tried to ruin the magic by saying it's resonant acoustic vibrations caused by specific humidity ratios interacting with cave geometry. But here's the thing, no one's been able to replicate it. Bring recording equipment, and the cave goes quiet. Bring sensors, and the sound stops. It's like the cave is shy. Or worse, it knows it's being watched. Acoustics experts suggested microtremors in the rock might create frequencies below human hearing that vibrate the air until we think we hear chanting. But again, no instruments have ever recorded these frequencies. So, either the cave is an expert gaslighter, or we've stumbled upon the planet's weirdest ASMR room. And get this, some archaeologists found petroglyphs near the entrance depicting circles of people standing in the cave with lines coming out of their mouths, as if they were singing with it. So, was this an ancient ritual spot, or a naturally occurring karaoke system possessed by ghosts of the geologically inclined? Whatever it is, the singing isn't random. The notes follow a consistent pattern, minor scales, shifting up and down like a Gregorian chant, meaning there's structure, something deliberate. Basically, the Earth decided to audition for the voice, and it's still waiting for science to hit the right note. Number 9. Lake Natron, the Petrifying Mirror. Now, picture this, a blood-red lake so deadly that animals which touch it turn to stone. That's not hyperbole. Welcome to Lake Natron, Tanzania's favorite instant taxidermy site. The lake's bright crimson color comes from salt-loving microorganisms that thrive in temperatures up to 60 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Combine that with water that's more caustic than bleach, and you've basically got Satan's birdbath. Photographer Nick Brandt became famous for his eerie photos of perfectly preserved animals, birds, bats, even flamingos frozen in lifelike poses. Their bodies calcified by the lake's high alkaline content. It looks like Medusa opened a spa here. Here's the weird part. Scientists still can't fully explain why some animals are instantly mummified while others dissolve entirely. Even weirder, some survive brief contact. It's as if the lake chooses who lives and who becomes modern art. Geologists blame sodium carbonate, the same chemical ancient Egyptians used for mummification. But that doesn't explain the lake's strange mirror effect. It reflects the sky so perfectly that birds often dive in, thinking it's open air. It's literally a deadly optical illusion. And there's something creepier. The lake sits at the base of an extinct volcano that occasionally releases carbon dioxide bursts, suffocating animals in the area without warning. So, Lake Natron isn't just a lake. It's a beautiful, murderous prank. If hell had a screensaver, this would be it. Number 8. The Village That Sleeps. Imagine an entire village that falls asleep all at once, for days. No, not metaphorically, literally. In the small Kazakh town of Kalachi, entire groups of residents suddenly collapsed into deep sleep that lasted for days. Some snored at the dinner table, others while walking home. A few even fell asleep mid-conversation. Doctors initially blamed exhaustion, then mass hysteria, then maybe something in the vodka. But when cows started doing it too, they had to rethink. For years, scientists searched for answers. They checked the air, food, soil, and even cosmic radiation levels. Eventually, a theory emerged. The town sat next to an abandoned Soviet uranium mine leaking carbon monoxide and radon gas. Sounds logical, right? Except the levels weren't high enough to cause mass narcolepsy. Plus, people in neighboring villages were totally fine. Then came the weirdest twist. Many victims experienced vivid dreams, the same dreams involving a tunnel of light and whispers calling them by name. Some woke up days later speaking different languages. One man even claimed he could see time. By 2015, the government relocated the entire population, calling it a sleep epidemic. The town is now abandoned, silent, and ironically nicknamed Sleepy Hollow. Science said toxic gases, but that doesn't explain why pets also fell into synchronized naps. Or why it all stopped the moment people left, like the land itself had gotten bored. So yeah, Sleepy Town, More like Mother Earth accidentally pressed hibernate. Number 7. The Devil's Kettle. In northern Minnesota, there's a waterfall where half the river just disappears, like straight up vanishes into a hole called the Devil's Kettle. Tourists throw in sticks, ping pong balls, dye, even GPS trackers, and none ever come out the other side. Hydrologists tried to trace it using fluorescent dye. The dye vanished too. For decades, geologists argued over where the water goes. Some said it runs into a hidden underground river system. Others said it seeps through volcanic fissures. But that theory hit a wall when they realized there are no such fissures in the local rock. In 2016, a new team used flow sensors to measure the water upstream and downstream and concluded that somehow the missing water does reappear below, which means it's just underground plumbing. Mystery solved, right? Nope, because no one has ever seen the exit. It's like nature's doing sleight of hand. Oh, your water went in there? Don't worry, I put it back. Somewhere. Local folklore says the hole goes directly to hell, which sounds dramatic until you realize it literally swallows anything thrown in. Maybe the Earth just wanted a garbage disposal. Or maybe it's the planet's way of saying, stop throwing your trash at me, humans. Either way, it's a hole that drinks rivers. And science still doesn't know where it burps. Number 6. The Door to Hell. Imagine a giant, flaming pit in the middle of the desert. Not a volcano, not a movie set, but an actual hole that's been burning nonstop for over 50 years. Welcome to Darvaza Crater in Turkmenistan, also known by its much catchier nickname, the Door to Hell. Back in 1971, Soviet geologists were drilling for natural gas when the ground collapsed beneath them, forming a massive crater. Methane started leaking, and because the Soviets had a just set it on fire and hope for the best kind of energy, they lit it, assuming it would burn out in a few days. Spoiler, it didn't. The flames have been going strong ever since decades of relentless fire, surviving sandstorms, rain, and the sheer confusion of every scientist who's ever visited. Temperatures at the edge can reach over 1,000 degrees Celsius, enough to melt metal. Researchers have tried to explain it continuous methane seepage, slow underground combustion, etc., but none of that explains why it's remained so perfectly stable for half a century. Other gas fields flare out. This one? Eternal barbecue. And here's where it gets creepier sometimes. The flames pulse, as if the Earth is breathing. Some locals believe it's alive, a literal wound in the planet that never heals. Scientists sent a heat-resistant robot inside once, but it broke before sending data back. So now we've got a bottomless, fire-breathing hole in the ground that kills machines. If that's not the world's biggest do not disturb sign, I don't know what is. Basically, the Earth farted fire, and the Soviet Union accidentally summoned a gateway to Mordor. Number 5. The Silent Zone. You've probably heard of the Bermuda Triangle now meet its landlocked cousin, the Zone of Silence in northern Mexico. It's a mysterious stretch of desert where radios stop working, compasses spin like they're drunk, and even birds refuse to fly over it. In the 1,970 seconds, a U.S. military rocket accidentally went off course and crashed right there. When recovery teams arrived, their communications failed. Magnetic interference, they said. Okay, fine. But then scientists tried to study the area, and their instruments stopped working too. Geologists blamed high iron deposits, which could distort magnetic fields. But that doesn't explain why even cellular devices and GPS go haywire, or why meteors seem to crash there more often than anywhere else. And here's where things get weird. Plants in the Zone of Silence grow larger than their counterparts outside it. And some local animals have strange mutations, albino lizards, glowing insects, you name it. Local folklore says it's a cosmic window, a place where signals and maybe beings from other worlds pass through. Scientists, predictably, called that nonsense. Then a team from NASA visited. Officially, they were collecting meteorite fragments. Unofficially, they didn't say. One geophysicist described it perfectly. It's as if the desert itself refuses to be measured. So, the next time your Wi-Fi drops, maybe don't complain. Somewhere in Mexico, there's a patch of sand that kills satellites for fun. Number 4. The forest that eats people. Some forests are peaceful. This one is not. Welcome to Hoia Baciu Forest in Romania, often called the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania, which is already unfair because Transylvania doesn't need any extra creepiness. Visitors report dizziness, nausea, rashes, and time distortion. Yes, time distortion inside the forest's circular clearing, where nothing grows. Trees twist unnaturally, almost as if they're avoiding something in the center. In 1968, a biologist named Alexandru Sift captured bizarre glowing orbs on film decades before Photoshop existed. Then, in 2001, a local technician accidentally took a photo showing what appeared to be a floating, disc-shaped craft above the trees. Of course, skeptics say it's just radiation, soil composition, or hallucinogenic mold spores. But then how do you explain the fact that devices malfunction only within the circle, or that people claim to lose hours wandering only to find they've moved mere meters? Locals tell stories of villagers vanishing into thin air. One girl disappeared for 5 years, then reappeared wearing the same clothes, with no memory of where she'd been. Scientists dismissed it as folklore, which is a polite way of saying, we got nothing. Whatever's going on, Hoia Baciu feels like the forest version of a computer glitch. It's beautiful, wrong, and deeply uninterested in human explanations. Basically, if Mother Nature had a glitchy download folder, this would be it. Number 3. The Whistling Dunes of Kazakhstan. Sand dunes are supposed to be quiet, peaceful, boring, except when they sing. Deep in Kazakhstan lies the Singing Dune, a 150-meter tall hill of quartz sand that emits a loud humming sound like a bass note from an invisible cello. Sometimes it's soft, like a whale song. Other times, it's a full-on subwoofer rumble you can feel in your bones. You might think, okay, it's just the wind. Nope, it sings even on windless days. Geophysicists believe the sound is caused by layers of sand grains vibrating against each other under perfect humidity and temperature conditions. But when they tried to replicate it in the lab, total failure. The dune only sings when it wants to. And the sound isn't random, it's tuned to frequencies between 70 and 105 hertzes, the same range as Gregorian chants. That's right, the desert basically hums church music. Coincidence? Maybe, but weirdly poetic. Local legend says it's the voice of a sleeping giant buried under the sands, murmuring in his dreams. Others say it's the Earth's way of communicating. Science calls it acoustic resonance. I call it the planet's Spotify playlist Mysterious Edition. Number 2. The Death Valley Moving Rocks. Here's a fun science riddle. What do you get when you combine a barren desert, a cracked lake bed, and a bunch of rocks that move by themselves? Answer: existential dread and racetrack playa, Death Valley's most confusing tourist attraction. These rocks, some weighing hundreds of pounds, slide across the desert floor, leaving perfectly straight trails behind them as if someone dragged them in the middle of the night. Except, no one did. The mystery dates back to the early 1900s. Scientists watched, measured, placed cameras, and for decades, nothing. The rocks just sat there, taunting everyone. Then, one morning, they'd moved again. Finally, in 2014, researchers installed GPS trackers and time-lapse cameras and discovered something insane. A thin layer of ice forms overnight, then breaks up under sunlight and wind, pushing the rocks slowly along the slick mud surface. Mystery solved, right? Well, kinda, because not all the rocks move the same way. Some zigzag, some reverse direction, some turn in perfect circles, patterns no ice sheet can logically produce. And in several cases, there was no ice at all. So maybe it's a combination of physics, luck, and a dash of Mother Nature's sense of humor. Or maybe, as locals like to say, the rocks just like to wander. Either way, these things have been casually defying explanation for over a century. You know that feeling when you can't find your car keys and start questioning reality? Yeah, now imagine that, but the keys weigh 300 pounds and live in the desert. Number 1. The Blood Falls of Antarctica. Let's end on something truly nightmarish, a waterfall that bleeds. Deep in Antarctica's McMurdo Dry Valleys, there's a glacier called Taylor Glacier that leaks crimson red liquid from a crack in the ice, staining the snow like a fresh crime scene. It's called Blood Falls because, of course it is. When explorers first found it in 1911, they thought it was algae. Nope. Later, they thought it was iron oxide rust. Closer, but still no cigar. Turns out, the water comes from a hidden subglacial lake that's been sealed off for over 2 million years. That lake is full of salt, iron, and microscopic life that somehow survived without sunlight or oxygen. The blood is actually iron-rich brine oxidizing when it hits the air, but that's not the weird part. The weird part is that scientists still don't fully understand how that ecosystem works. There's life in there that eats and breathes in ways nothing else on Earth does. No sunlight, no oxygen, no photosynthesis, just ancient bacteria vibing in the world's most cursed aquarium. Geochemists call it a natural time capsule. I call it the planet's horror movie teaser. Even creepier? Some researchers think it might be a model for what life could look like on Mars or Europa. Because apparently, the next logical step after finding bleeding ice is to ask, what if aliens are just really cold microbes? So, yeah, Antarctica, the continent that looked at winter and said, not terrifying enough, let's add blood. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.